Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so in today's episode, I thought I'd try to say something about truth. So, why even tell the truth? Why is truth important? Well, first of all, it seems to be clearly important in a very basic, practical sense. I mean, if your beliefs are true and you go on to act on them, then you're often likely to get what you want, right? For example, let's say that you want some juice, and you have the belief that there's some juice in your fridge. And what's more, let's say that you believe that you can get to the fridge just by getting up from the couch and heading towards it. Well, because what you believe about the juice and the avenue available to you are both in fact true, then if you act on those beliefs, you're very likely to end up getting what it is you want. On the other hand, if you had mistaken beliefs about the juice and how to get it, acting on them would be very unlikely to result in you getting what you want. So obviously then, truth in this practical sense is indispensable for successfully navigating ourselves around in the world. I hope all that is pretty obvious. Okay, but telling the truth is also required if we want to communicate with each other. After all, human communication would not be possible unless we assume that others are telling the truth, right? Why would I ask you anything? There would be no reason for me to pay attention to what you say if I could not assume that you will tell the truth. Again, without the assumption of truthfulness, communication could not take place. And what's more, without truth-telling, we couldn't build a foundation together and manifest each other and our actions in the world. Now, what I mean by that is something like this. When we trust somebody to keep their word or their promise, we go ahead with our plans, depending all the while on them to do what they're expected to do. But if they break their promise with us, they let us down. So, what's happened here? Well, it's like we had built this foundation that we thought was very solid, only to have it implode beneath us. And all because a promise was not kept. This is why keeping a promise is just so important. To promise is to ensure and safeguard the future or establish some continuity in time. By promising, by laying out our commitment over time, we bring some constancy and some predictability to our lives, and so overcome, in part, the randomness and chaos of the future. When we're able to do this, we give ourselves the proper foundation to build an entire world together. Actually, here I'm reminded of the philosopher Hannah Arendt, who said something very similar. For her, if you don't make the past and the future a part of the present by remembering what you said to somebody and intending to follow through with it, then, basically, you allow unpredictability and meaninglessness to rule. Maybe another way of saying this is that what making a promise to another person does is it redeems the future by keeping the hope for it alive. Or to put it yet another way, maybe, basically what making a promise to somebody does is it preserves the past and so ensures that the future is reliable, that it becomes something that you can count on and be there for you. In other words, a promise builds a bridge from the present to the future. And so obviously then, breaking a promise does the exact opposite. It denies the reality of the past and so denies the hope of any kind of future. What it does is it collapses all bridges. And so for Arendt, making promises relates us to the future in such a way that it creates for us, as she says, islands of certainty in the midst of a larger sea of uncertainty. In fact, Arendt says that making promises is actually the greatest remedy for unpredictability. And what she means by that is that without being bound by our promises, we would just be wandering around alone, totally aimless in the dark. Now, all this said, I don't think it's controversial to say that there's been a real breakdown of truth these last 10 years or so, certainly within popular culture, but by no means limited to it. Now, this breakdown might take the form of extreme relativism, or appeals to intuition, or just denials to avoid uncomfortable realities. Not to mention the great enabler in all of this, of course, social media. But maybe the most disconcerting of all is the rise of what the philosopher Harry Frankfurt calls BS. So basically what Frankfurt says is that BS is a form of falsehood that's distinct from lying. It's distinct in this way. The liar, on the one hand, knows about the truth, but instead of telling it, they deliberately set out to mislead. But the speaker of BS, on the other hand, doesn't care about whether what they say is true or false at all. All they want to do is to impress and grandstand. Now, although lying is bad, to be a speaker of BS seems even more insidious. And that's because it's a disregard of truth altogether. And it's this indifference that is really, really scary. And it's this that's at the heart of some of the most atrocious characters today ever on the rise. Maybe the painter, Goya, was right. The sleep of reason does produce monsters. Anyway, apart from all of this, what the erosion of truth and its corollary, the attack on expertise, ultimately does is it threatens our very survival. It distracts us from seeing just how fragile our biological and cultural life is. I mean, we live within a very small atmosphere that separates us from the dark and unbreathable emptiness of space. When we play loose with the truth because we want to grandstand or bully, or simply because we're more concerned with the naked pursuit of self-interest, then we do it at our own collective peril. It took a very long time for human beings to achieve what they did. But it'll take very little time to destroy it all if we persist in our attack on the most precious thing that we have. Not gold, not oil, but truth. Bye for now.